Hi everyone, Ruth here, and today I'm going to teach you how to turn your idea into an MVP. MVP stands for Minimum Viable Product. This is the most minimal version of your idea turned into an operational product that can be tested and improved. The idea behind building an MVP and not the full product from day one is that you can test the product and iterate continuously. You release something lean, test it, improve it. Release another something lean, test it, improve it. The idea is to continuously grow, not work on something for months or even years in the worst case scenarios, and then find out in the end that this is not what your customers want. You release something that they can actually give you feedback on early on so you can pivot and change whatever needs to change before you spend too much resources and too much time into this. You might have heard this famous quote by Reid Hoffman, one of the founders of LinkedIn. If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late. That doesn't mean that you need to half-ass the first version of your product. It doesn't mean that you need to create something that is low quality. It does mean that you need to focus on the first version. The first version is not going to be perfect, and if you keep trying to make it perfect, to make it the product of your dreams, you will find yourself wasting too much time, too much energy on something that you don't even know the reaction of your audience to. So you really want to focus on launching, not on perfecting. Keep that in mind as we go along with the actual steps of creating your MVP. So let's start by setting the goals of creating an MVP. There are two main goals here. Your first goal is to launch as fast as possible. You want to give yourself no more than 2 months to complete your MVP and launch it. If you can do it in less, that's even better. Focus on weeks and not months into launch. Don't try to add something all the time to improve the product, to think about what your customers might want. Release something that is good enough but not perfect. And the second goal is to get customers' feedback. That's the whole point of an MVP. That's the reason we focus on releasing it as soon as possible. We want the customer feedback to help us decide what we're going to do next, if this is a good direction, if people are actually wanting this. So keep these two in mind. When you look at it like this, the goal of releasing an MVP is really not to release your perfect end-all be-all product. It is another tool for you to do your market research. Yes, you should have done market research before you've even started working on this product. This is the first step in any idea that you have, but the MVP is just another step. It's a way to lower the risk of investing a bunch of money into something that you haven't really figured out if people want, and if they do, if they want it in the form that you're thinking they want it. Ha! Now, let's talk about how we actually create an MVP. There are a few very clear steps. The first one is to define your core value proposition. You want to be very clear on what it is your product does. What is your value proposition? When someone asks you, hey, what does this product do? You want to know in one sentence what this product does. And the way to figure it out is by understanding who are your customers and what is the problem that your product is solving. Your product might be solving a lot of problems to a lot of customers, but you do need to narrow it down and understand this one core problem that you are solving, this one core value proposition that your product offers to customers. And of course, you want to write this down. I don't know how to clarify how important it is. You might think, oh no, I know what my product does. That's okay. I don't need to write it down. Write it down, force yourself to think of it in a sentence so you can't really stray to the sides. You have a very, very clear vision of what the problem is that you are solving. The second step would be to list these features down and prioritize them according to their importance to the MVP and to the core value proposition. Think about how they affect you actually being able to solve the problem that your product is meant to solve. Think about how long it's going to take to develop them, how complex it is, and how expensive would it be for you and your team. These are all things to consider when you prioritize these features, because some features might be amazing and awesome and you think your customers are going to be very excited for it, but they're going to take 3 months to develop. And in that case, maybe they don't belong in the MVP. One tool to help you prioritize your features is by classifying them to 4 different categories. The first is must-haves, the second is should-haves, the third is could-haves, and the fourth is want-haves. And the idea is that this helps you think for each feature, is this something that my product has to have? Is it a must-have? Or is it something that I think it should have, but it's not really a must feature for my first launch, for my MVP? This is going to be the first step in you really narrowing down all of these features that are running through your head to something that you can focus on. The third step is to define your MVP features. Now that you know what your value proposition is, now that you've narrowed down your features and divided them into 4 different categories, you can go ahead and actually decide which ones are going to be included in the MVP. The main question you should ask yourself for each feature you're thinking is a must-have is this critical to solving my main problem? The main problem my product is here to solve. Is this feature a must-have in order to solve it, or am I just thinking this is going to be very nice? Let me give you an example on how to narrow it down. Let's say you are building a dating app. Are images and profiles a must? Yes. Are DMs a must? Yes, they are. Are prompt questions to encourage conversation a must? Absolutely not. Is connection to Instagram or any kind of other social media a must? Again, no. Is location services where you find out where the person is and search for people around them a must? Also no. Focus on just the core features. You might think location services are a must, but you could just let people manually enter their location in. This is an option, and maybe it's not the perfect vision that you have, but that's okay. We are not in the business of perfection, we are the business of MVPs. When you define your MVP features, try to focus on really 1 to 3 big features that are the core features of your app, so that you only solve the problem that you are meant to solve. Any additional problems that you think, yeah, I could also solve this with this feature and this with this feature, and oh, this is an easy feature, it's not going to take long to develop. Doesn't matter. Write it down in the backlog, keep it in your ideas, it's not going to get into the MVP. The fourth step is to actually write your PRD, your product requirements document. And we have a full video talking about how to write a product requirements document. So if you want to, it's going to be in the card somewhere to the left or to the right, I'm not sure. You can go ahead and click that and watch our video on that. But when you write your PRD, you want to make sure to only specify the must-have features that we defined in the earlier steps. While writing the PRD, you might find out that there's something that you didn't think is a must-have, but other features are dependent on, and add that in. This is a really dynamic stage where you kind of learn your product a little more. If you were writing a story, this would be the stage where you actually start putting in the plot and the content and learning your characters. The same goes for your product. This is where you really learn your product and you understand what it needs and what it doesn't. And for that reason, when you finish writing your PRD, you're going to ask yourself once again, are all of these features a must-have? Are all of these features must for me to complete my core value proposition? If the answer is no, remove the features that are not necessary. If the answer is yes, great. You've got an MVP product requirements document. The fifth step is to develop and plan for the future. What do I mean by that? Okay, your PRD is ready, your developers are working on the MVP, or maybe you are if you are the developer, and now your product is getting a life of its own.
It's alive! It's alive!
But as we mentioned, this is just an MVP, and the goal of this MVP is to test and get feedback. So you need to define the main KPIs that you are going to watch once you launch. Define the things that you want to test with this MVP. It could be the customers' reactions, or maybe there are specific questions that you have about how the customers are using the product or not using the product, what they are interested in and what they're not interested in. What are the usage KPIs that you want to see from customers? What is the reaction you want to see? What is going to help you define if this is a successful MVP or not? And if it's not a successful MVP, that's okay, it's not the end of the world. That's why we created it so lean, because it's going to be very easy for you to say, okay, this feature that I thought customers would love they're not interested in, and this one that was kind of a secondary thing they love, so this is what I'm going to focus on from now on. Figure out what are the metrics that are going to help you understand your product better and your customers better. The sixth step is to launch your product Once it is ready, you launch it, you hopefully start getting customers, and you can test out your KPIs. Set up the deadline of when you are going to pause, look at it, and decide what to do next according to the KPIs that you defined in the last step. A word of advice about a launch. Launching a product is not a huge big deal when you're just starting out. Maybe if you're Facebook or Google, when you launch something new, it is a big deal. But when you're just a startup that for the very first time launches something, it's probably going to go on pretty quietly, and that's okay. But you do want to make sure that you get some initial installs. There are different ways to do that. There are different tactics when you launch a product. If you want us to do a full video on that, we can. We do talk a little bit on marketing on the channel. I'm going to link some resources below, things that are going to help you get your very first installs, start getting feedback. But once you launch, make sure you are in touch with your customers. If someone deletes their account or uninstalls your app, ask them why. Reach out to them. Talk to them. You personally. In the beginning, you have the privilege of doing that. As your product grows, this will not be available to you as easily because you'll be busy and you'll have a lot of customers. But in the beginning, this is one of the most important things. This is one of the things that helps you improve your product and create very loyal customers that love you from day one. So these are the steps to creating an MVP. Do you have any questions? Let me know down below. I would love to answer them. And if you want us to make another video talking more in depth about any of these steps, let us know in the comments as well. We would love to do that. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up so YouTube knows. And if you did not do that yet, subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss another video from us. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.